This is going to be a big summer for Manchester United. Big in many ways, really. Bigger than last summer. Well, maybe not bigger than last summer, but it could be the deciding factor as to whether we become a solid top four team or go back into mid table obscurity. So I'm just going to go through the team, sort of see what we need to get rid of, what we can keep, and who we can bring in. So, starting at goalkeeper, don't need to say anything. As long as Onana doesn't come back, we keep Lamens. Lamens is fantastic. Don't need to say any more. Hopefully, he can go on to be the next De Gea, and I think he could do if this season's anything to go by. But bring in a backup keeper, get rid of Onana, get rid of Bayindir, bring in, I'd say maybe an experienced backup keeper that's been playing in, I don't know, the Portuguese league or the Dutch league, and yeah, that's that. Right back, as much as I don't rate Dalot, and I think Masraoui a good backup right back, I don't think we're going to touch that. Sorry, I don't think we're going to touch that position this season because there's more priorities, and we've got two solid players in that position. So I won't say any more about that. Centre backs are interesting because we have a big roster of centre backs at United. We have Martinez, we have De Ligt, we have Maguire, we have Yoro, and we have Heaven. But there's problems with most of those players, really. Martinez literally missed about 50% of Premier League games, so you can't rely upon him. As good as he is, I do rate him as a player. You just can't rely on him. I'm sorry, you just can't. De Ligt is maybe falling into that category of Martinez again, where he hasn't missed quite as many games, but he's been out since November, and I don't know what he'll be like when he gets back from that sort of injury, and I don't know if there's going to be a reoccurrence of that injury potentially in the future. So we find ourselves with two starting centre backs that you probably can't rely on. So then I think the third choice has been Maguire. Now we've just given him a new contract, so there's no point really discussing him too much. But the problem with Maguire is we have to play a different style of play when he's in the team, because you can't play further up the field or even on the halfway line with Maguire in the team because he's too slow. So every time he plays, we have to drop deep, we have to play on the counter attack, and I don't know how you're supposed to develop a style of play if you have different profiles of players in the same position. You look at Arsenal, for example. They have Gabriel, they have Saliba, then they have Hincapi, and they have Mosquera. I know they've both played fullback, but they are the backup centre backs, and they're all similar profiles of players. They're tall, they're strong, and they're quick. You can take one out, bring one in, and you can still play the same way. You can't do that with Maguire because Maguire would fit in at Everton. He'd be perfect at Everton. They play defensive football. They're solid, big, strong team. He'd fit in perfect. At United, though, if we're serious about developing a style of play like Arsenal, like Man City, like Liverpool, maybe not this season, but excuse me. But we've got him for another year. I don't hate him. I think he's a solid guy. He's done a lot for the team. I just think if you want to move forward, Arsenal and City wouldn't have a Maguire in the team, would they? And then you have Yoro. Again, I don't think Yoro's good enough for what we signed him for. And in the last 2 years, has he really progressed? Has he made any progression in his game? I don't think he has. I think he's relatively the same player he was when he was 18, and he's now 20. I think we should do with Yoro what Arsenal did with the Saliba, which was they bought him, and then I think loaned him back to France for 2 years in a row with, it might have been Saint Etienne and I want to say Marseille. I might be wrong, but it was two French clubs anyway. And then he came back, went straight into their team, and sort of the rest is history. Um, I think he needs that because I think at the moment he's fell down the pecking order. I think he's fifth choice. I think Heaven's better than him, and Heaven was signed for £1 million, whereas Yoro was what 50, 60 million. Um, so I think he'd really benefit from a loan right now, and the same with Heaven. Really, I think he'd be a solid squad player for us. To play in sort of FA Cup, Carabao Cup games, and maybe the odd Premier League game because we'll be in the Champions League, but at the end of the day, I think young players need game time, and I don't think he's quite there yet to be playing regularly for us. So if he could go on loan to, maybe a Hull, they've just come up to the Prem, or maybe a high Championship team like Wolves, who went down, Wolves, West Ham, and Burnley. I think West Ham would probably be a bit beyond him, but Wolves or Burnley, I think that'd be a good loan for him, and I think it'd be good for those clubs as well. So ideally, I'd like to see another centre back come in that's a better profile of centre back. But again, I think the club will look at it and say, well, we've got 5 centre backs. We don't need to invest in this position. So yeah, that's that really. Left back, Luke Shaw's actually played a full season. I don't think that'll be the case next year because he hasn't gone to the World Cup and there's no competitions coming up. So fair play, he's played a full season, but again, we've only been playing Premier League, so he'll need a backup regardless of whether he's injured or not. And depending on if Carrick decides Dorgu is a winger or not, but he has to make his mind up about that because that'll depend on what we do in the transfer market. If he decides he's a winger, we'll definitely need to go into the market and buy a left back, certainly a younger one, that can either back up Luke Shaw now or take his place in the future. I think you look at Lewis Hall. I think ideally Lewis Hall would be the perfect Luke Shaw replacement. But Lewis Hall's going to be. Sorry, excuse me. I think Lewis Hall's going to be 70. I saw 70 chucked out there today. So, considering the amount of positions we need right now, I don't think 70 million is going to be feasible. I think maybe next summer, when we don't need quite so many signings, hopefully, you can make 2 or 3 big signings, and Lewis Hall could be one of them next summer. As for this summer, though, I think we just need a backup or a younger one. People are talking about Harry Amas. I don't think he's ready for that. Played a bit in the Championship, done all right, but I think to come into United, who are in the Champions League, and sort of step up, I think it's a year or two too early, really. But anyway, moving on to the midfield. Right, the midfield, well, we've got Mainu, we've now got Ederson. I think we need a like-for-like replacement for Casemiro because I don't really see Ederson as like-for-like. I think he adds something to the team that Mainu and Casemiro didn't have last season. I think he adds energy, tenacity. He's a bit of a Fred kind of midfielder, really. Not just because he's Brazilian, but just his tenacity. Now, I think he could become a bit of a cult hero. But I don't think he can be the like-for-like replacement with Casemiro, if you get what I mean. For Casemiro, if you get what I mean. For me, the perfect one would be Tchouaméni. I think in terms of the profile of a defensive midfielder, and he can also fill in at centre back, which could be useful for us. I think he's like for like, obviously coming from Real Madrid again, good age, 26. So you can get a good sort of 5 years out of him probably. I just think he'd be the perfect midfielder, and with the falling, I know Real Madrid has said they're not necessarily going to sell him because of that, but we'll see, right? Because of his falling out with Valverde, and I think they'd keep Valverde over him. I think he'd be perfect. I think slap 70 million on him. I'd go for it straight away. That'd be my ideal. And plus, he has big club experience. Some players don't necessarily know what it means to play for a big club. But he does. He plays for Real Madrid. Real Madrid are one of the 2 or 3 teams only that are bigger than United. So to me, he'd be perfect. The other midfielder, you'd have to go a cheaper one because we've got a cheap one with Edison. You can go maybe similar kind of price, maybe 10, 15 million more on the second midfielder, and then obviously the expensive midfielder would be Tchouaméni or a Tonali or a Elliot Anderson. Although he's going to City, isn't he? Anderson's going to City. Let's be real here. So for me, it's Tonali or Tchouaméni, and I'd probably prefer Tchouaméni. You could go Alex Scott for that other midfielder. You could go Wharton. There's midfielders out there that you could get for an all right price. Attacking midfielder, I don't need to say much more. Bruno is great. He's probably the best player in the Premier League last season. Ideally, I'd like a younger attacking midfielder to come in and sort of back him up and eventually, develop and replace him. But we've got Mason Mount, and probably not going to get rid of him, even though he's injury prone, even though he's done nothing for 3 years. But ideally, instead of Mason Mount, I'd like an Arda Güler or a Mastantuono. I think that's how you say his name, for that Real Madrid both have. These young, high potential sort of attacking midfielders that could become world beaters in the next few years. I'd like one of those kind of players. But because we got Mason Mount, no. So moving on to the wingers, we have Cunha and Burmo. Ahmad's had a pretty poor season, but I wouldn't sell him quite yet. If he had another season like last season, maybe. But keep him. Got Dorgu potentially if he's treated as a winger, but I would like to see another winger just to, compete or, just to be there. I just think we need one more in there. And then finally, moving on to the striker, we've got Sesko, obviously. I like Sesko. I liked him before he came into United. I like him now. I think he's got all the right attributes to be a top striker. He's tall, he's quick, he's got a good finish on him. He's got all the attributes. And he's had a, not world beating, but solid first season. I think if he can push on and get what did he get? 11, 12 Premier League goals? If he can get between 15 and 20 next year, I'd consider that a good year, because I think he didn't get much more than Højlund in his first season. So I think he just, if he got less goals, I'd be like, But I think if he can improve on his goal tally, by 3 or 4 next year, I think that'd be what you consider sort of solid progress. As for Xerxes, though, I didn't rate him from the start. I always give, any player that comes to United, you want to do well. But I saw a couple of games of his and I just wasn't convinced. And since I know he got was it Newcastle he got booed off? Which harsh, but was it fair? Sorry, I've just done the 6-7. I don't think he's suited to the Premier League. I think he's suited to Serie A, French League, Bundesliga, and I think he's a team where the wingers run on and score, and he can play as that sort of halfway between a 9 and a 10. I just don't think. I don't think he's suitable for us. I don't think he's suitable for the Premier League. So maybe an older, experienced striker can come in, back up Sesko and be a better fit for us. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I'd probably go 2 more midfielders, a left back, backup striker, possibly winger or centre back. If we're going for 6 overall, including Edison. And yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.